Death never announces itself with an official note. It steals in quietly and tears something out of you. That night, something inside me died, right when she turned around. Except she didn't turn to look at me. She turned, but her eyes were somewhere beyond my shoulder, as if there was a presence there I couldn't see. Something so final in that gesture. That's the moment, I think, when I truly understood how much it can hurt to be invisible to the woman you love. I'm not telling you this story for pity. I'm telling it because it's the only way I can breathe. The only way to set things right in my own head, or what's left of it. If you're listening, whoever you are, this is for you. But in my mind, it's really for her, or maybe for the man she shared herself with. I'm not even sure anymore. Anyway, let me collect myself. We were at the dinner table, our usual spot. The overhead light was buzzing again. I kept meaning to fix it. She wore her favorite dress, soft material that clung to her hips and shoulders in a graceful line. I wore my usual robe after work, plus an old pair of sweatpants, because I'd come home exhausted and hadn't bothered changing into anything decent for the evening. We had a casserole I'd thrown together. She poked at it with her fork, smiling politely, like everything was normal. It wasn't. On the surface, we talked about small things. Groceries, some coupon we got in the mail, how her freelance deadlines were piling up. But her smile kept flickering, and her eyes would dart to her phone that lay face down by her elbow. She made a point of not touching it for as long as she could. I noticed. Of course I noticed. Men notice these things when our guts are already twisted in suspicion. I remember the color of her lipstick that night. A subtle red, not too bright, but it left a smudge on her wineglass. I remember the way her hair caught the overhead light, a bit of a golden shimmer. And I remember that phone trembling on the table at 8:45 p.m., like a heartbeat going off at exactly the wrong time. For a moment, she froze. Her eyes locked on it before she realized I was looking at her. Then, so casually you'd think she was reading a grocery list, she turned the screen toward herself and flicked it open with her thumb. I think she forgot there was a reflection in the glass of our window, because I caught a glimpse of the text, and I heard a voice clip start to play, though she immediately lowered the volume. It was her voice, but so soft, so intimate. 3 words. You're the best. She wasn't talking to me. God, no. That hush in her tone was meant for somebody else. I don't know what I said. Maybe I said nothing. Time bent in on itself for a second, the world tipping sideways. I must have stared like an idiot, my mouth half open. She realized I could hear it, because she tapped the phone's side button so quickly the message cut off. A quiet beep, and then the silence in the room roared. You probably know what that silence feels like. Your heart pounding so loud that you think everyone can hear it. That was me in that moment, trying not to get up and just demand to know who the hell was on that phone. I didn't get up though. That's the cowardice, maybe. Or maybe it was the bizarre sense that a camera was rolling, capturing this meltdown from 100 angles, like some twisted documentary that nobody asked for. Except it wasn't a fantasy. We actually had a camera running, set up on the opposite side of the living room. Months ago, I got the idea to film little cooking segments for some side project of hers. That camera was always around, always there. I never turned it off that night. I guess I wanted to document our dinner, or catch something raw and real. Now it was filming me, filming her, filming us. You probably wonder what I did next. I wish I'd hammered my fist on the table and demanded the truth. Instead, I felt my breath catch, and I forced a laugh as if I'd misheard something. She looked startled, maybe expecting me to do something dramatic, but I only said, "Is that your mom texting again?" Something lame like that. She immediately smiled, that stiff, rehearsed kind of smile, and said, "Oh yes, she's just checking in." We both knew it was a lie. We both pretended it wasn't. And the camera, like some silent judge, watched on. I've never felt so cornered in my own house. How can a man feel cornered at his own dinner table by a person he's loved for 10 years? That's the question that kept echoing through my mind as we finished our meal in near silence. Each second, I felt a swirl of panic inside, quickly followed by a wave of anger. Then panic again. A cycle. It was like being in the ring with an invisible boxer, each blow coming from a new direction. Meanwhile, she tried to keep up appearances, smiling, occasionally glancing at me, sometimes asking if I wanted more wine. But her eyes held distance, fear, and something else. Guilt, maybe. When dinner ended, we cleared the plates together. That was our routine. She rinsed them. I stacked them in the dishwasher. My hands were shaking a bit, but I pressed them onto the damp plates, letting the water scald my skin. It was enough to keep me calm. I had an impulse to ask, "How long?" But I clenched my jaw and kept quiet. Because if I asked that question, then she'd have to answer. And if she answered, I'd have no illusions left. Sometimes illusions are the only thing that stand between a man and the pure, unfiltered agony of betrayal. I guess I wasn't ready to face that black hole. Not yet. So I waited. The next day, and the day after, I didn't confront her directly. Instead, I poked and probed like a coward in the shadows. I'd say stuff like, "Hey, we should have a date night tomorrow. Watch that old movie you love," just to see if she'd recoil. I watched how she held her phone. She was more protective about it than ever, carried it with her from room to room, stuck it in her purse with the screen locked. She'd always been open with me about her phone, leaving it lying around. Not anymore. Now it was her secret. Her lover, in a rectangular piece of metal and glass. I started to see them in my head. At first, it was just a flicker. Her leaning close to some man in a quiet bar, her hair brushing his cheek. But the pictures in my mind became more lurid. Her dress sliding up her thigh in the back seat of his car, his hand trailing up her leg, her nails digging into his arms. All of it was imaginary, but I knew it was real. Don't ask me how. I just did. I'd wake up at odd hours, drenched in sweat, the taste of salt and fury in my mouth. The desire to smash something was overwhelming. Sometimes I laughed out loud at how ridiculous it all was. My own wife stepping out on me. And me so paralyzed. That laughter turned into a kind of black humor. I'd crack jokes to myself in the mirror. "Congratulations, buddy," I'd say. "You're the best among those who failed. Pathetic, I know. But you need to understand." I was drowning in shame. Admitting I was being cheated on felt like admitting I was less of a man. So instead of confronting her, I sank deeper into a quiet, gnawing obsession. I toyed with the camera a few nights, repositioning it in corners so that it might pick up new angles. I had this cunning thought. If I left the camera rolling in unsuspecting places, maybe I'd catch her texting him, or calling him. Something to confirm my suspicion. But she was clever, always found a corner of the house or a moment away from the lens. Maybe she understood how badly I wanted that proof, and she wasn't going to give it to me. Eventually, my tension broke. It was a Thursday evening. I poured 2 glasses of whiskey and set them on the table, telling her I wanted to talk. "Just talk," I said. "Can we do that?" She gave me a guarded look but sat down anyway. I remember every detail of how she looked. Her hair in a loose bun, her cheeks slightly flushed, and that cautious half-smile that told me she was bracing for the worst. I asked how her freelance work was going. She answered politely, sipping the whiskey, not meeting my eyes. Then I asked about her phone. That question dropped between us like a grenade with the pin pulled out. For a moment, she froze. Then she gave me a careful, "What about my phone?" I forced a casual shrug. "You've been extra protective of it, just making sure everything's okay." She tried to laugh it off. "I've just been stressed. Clients keep calling me at weird hours. Didn't want them interrupting our time together." She said it so smoothly, I almost believed her. But we both knew the truth. The conversation fizzled. It was an anticlimax. I finished my whiskey and said nothing else, letting her slip away to the bedroom. I could sense her relief. She thought I was just suspicious, but not enough to force a confrontation. And maybe she was right, for that moment, because I still wasn't ready to see my illusions disintegrate. That weekend, though, everything cracked open. We were invited to a small get-together at a friend's house, one of those casual gatherings with barbecue in the backyard. I insisted we go together, even though she seemed oddly hesitant. My real motive was to watch her in a social setting, see if she was texting him. I guess I wanted a chance to observe her from a distance, so we went. It was hot, sticky summer air. The smell of grilled meat and cheap beer hung around the yard. People were chatting, laughing. She put on a friendly face, smiling at everyone, sipping her cocktail. But I caught her in the corner, phone in hand, her thumbs tapping quickly. She kept glancing around, making sure nobody was looking. I watched from across the yard, feeling my pulse hammer in my ears. My hand tightened around the soda can I was holding, crushing it slightly. That's when I noticed a tall figure slip around the side of the house, phone in hand too. A man with broad shoulders and a certain confident stride that screamed, "I get what I want." He was wearing a crisp, short-sleeved shirt and nice jeans. He had that self-assured air, like he never doubted his place in the world. My guts twisted. I couldn't prove anything yet, but something told me that was him. I recognized a certain tension in the line of her body as she read something on her phone. Then she looked up at the crowd, scanning. When her gaze found him, it was like static electricity sparked between them, even across the group of people. Her lips parted slightly, and for a second, I could see her heart was in her throat. Then she quickly looked away. But it was too late. I saw everything I needed to see. I said nothing. Not there. Not then. But inside, I was screaming. I kept up the polite facade, greeted old friends, tried to joke around. But every time I looked for her, I found him in the background, or I saw them trading quick glances. Once they nearly ended up in the same hallway to the bathroom, alone. I watched them from the corner. She must have realized how close they were to me or someone else noticing, because she turned around and hurried back toward the living room, avoiding him. Something sinister inside me began to form, the black kernel of rage. I wanted to humiliate them, lash out, expose this betrayal in front of everyone. My mind conjured up insane scenarios, grabbing a microphone and announcing to the whole party, "Hey, want to see who my wife's hooking up with behind my back?" But I didn't do it. Instead, I decided to fight with cunning. Quiet cunning. That's what I did the next day and the day after. I manipulated her. I planted small traps, asked pointed questions. "Hey, my friend from Texas said he might come to town. He's in it." I'd say innocently, "What do you think about that?" Or I'd talk about the new data management software at my workplace, see if she lit up in recognition. She didn't betray herself. She was a good liar, or maybe just a frightened one, trying to keep her secrets locked tight. But each time I pressed, I saw a flicker in her eyes that told me she was thinking of him, his job, his face, the messages he sent. She laughed nervously, called me paranoid. She tried to act like I was being silly. I started pushing her into situations that felt cruel even as I did it. For instance, one day I insisted we record a cooking video together for her side project, the one that had started our camera habit in the first place. "Shimon," I said in my best excited voice, "let's show the folks how we make that fancy pasta sauce you love." She seemed reluctant, but I set up the camera, turned on the bright lights in the kitchen, and forced her to stand there, smile, and talk about how we were a happy couple. Inside, I seethed. She pretended so well, stirring the sauce, tasting it from the spoon, leaning her head on my shoulder for the shot. That closeness was an act, a performance. I knew it. The camera was rolling, capturing her fake smiles, and it also captured the moment her phone vibrated on the countertop with a text from him. Though the camera probably only recorded the beep, not the name lighting up the screen. I could see the panic in her eyes when she felt it buzz. She tried to hide it, brushing it off with a forced giggle. "Oops, That's just my client again. I almost laughed at how pathetic it was. That's where the black humor started creeping in. The more she tried to keep her secrets, the more comedic it all felt to me. Like we were starring in a dark sitcom. Husband knows. Wife pretends. Everybody fakes a grin while the audience sees the truth. Cue laughter. Finally, late one night, I scrolled through her phone while she was in the shower. Yes, I know how that sounds. Desperate, shameful. And it was. I had a million justifications in my head about how I had the right to know, how she'd forced me to become a spy. But the reality is, I was prying into her private world. That's a special kind of self-inflicted wound, to see, in black and white text, the proof that you're not enough for her. Because there it was, all the messages, the photos, nothing fully explicit, but enough to make me sick. The voice notes she'd sent him. The very words she once used to whisper into my ear, typed out for him. They had jokes about me, calling me dull, naive, a safe option. She'd said he was the best in ways she'd never said to me. My vision blurred, my throat went dry. I could hardly think. One snippet stood out. It's all so easy with you. He never excites me like this. Funny how a few lines of text can break the last piece of your self-esteem. A hatred rose up in me, stronger than anything I'd felt before. But also, underneath it all, a weird clarity. I realized I was done playing the clueless husband. I was done letting this fester. The black humor in my head told me, hey, might as well enjoy the show now. Because I wanted revenge, not in a flashy way, not to make a big scene. But something deeper, something final. I confronted her the next evening. But not in the usual sense of shouting and cursing. I set up the camera in our living room under the guise of testing a new lens or angle for her supposed side project. Then I asked her to join me on the couch. She had that weary look on her face. Maybe she suspected something. I turned on the camera, made sure it was recording, and sat down beside her. I want you to watch something, I said quietly, holding my phone. It's a video clip. She looked at me with confusion. Then, in a slow, deliberate motion, I played one of her own voice notes. The one she'd sent to him. You're the best. You're everything. Her mouth fell open. She tried to snatch the phone away. But I closed my hand around it. Don't, I said. Let me hear it all. Her voice, so intimate, so breathy, filled our living room, echoing off the walls. Hearing it again made me sick, but I forced myself to remain calm. The camera was capturing her reaction. The guilt, the horror, the realization that I knew everything. She turned to me, tears in her eyes. Let's talk about this in private. Turn off the camera. Please. I felt something cold settle into my bones. A part of me wanted to break down and cry, to rage, to demand to know why. But the part of me that spoke stayed calm. No, I said. We talk now. On the record. You'll give me your truth. Right here. She looked like a cornered animal. She tried to reach for the camera. I blocked her hand. Then I said, it's only me, you, and the truth. Tell me who he is. Tell me how long. Tell me everything. It all came pouring out, though not in tidy order. She sobbed and stammered. She tried to justify it, said she never intended to hurt me, but she felt trapped in a routine. She needed excitement. She needed passion. She claimed it just happened, as if an affair was some random weather event. I let her talk, occasionally prodding her with questions to keep it going. Where do you meet him? When did it start? She admitted they'd been together for several months, sneaking around under the pretext of her freelance meetings. There was a moment in her confession when she tried to shift blame onto me, that I was too distant, too wrapped up in my own life. She even said I never looked at her with real desire anymore. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was complacent. But that's the thing about betrayal. You can come up with 1,000 reasons, 1,000 justifications, but it never erases that fundamental breach. Something irreparable breaks inside a marriage when one partner chooses to lie. time after time. At some point, I realized the camera had been filming for over an hour. She was crying softly, hugging her knees on the couch, the mascara smudging beneath her eyes. Her hair had fallen out of its clip. She looked shattered. I stared at her, searching for any spark of the woman I once loved. Couldn't find it. All I saw was regret, and maybe some leftover affection that was too little, too late. I told her I wanted her to leave, to pack a bag and go to a friend's place. She looked up, panicked. "But this is our home," she said. I answered with a flat tone, "Not anymore." My voice sounded alien, even to me. It was that dryness, that calm that feels more frightening than rage. "Go," I said again. "Don't come back until you can give me a reason to even look at you without hatred." She hesitated, her lips trembling. For a moment, she put her hand on mine. I jerked away like her touch burned. Then she stood, went to the bedroom, and began packing. I turned off the camera. The final image it recorded was my face, stiff and expressionless. If you look closely, you might notice a single tear in my left eye. Or maybe the lighting was bad. I'm not sure. You'd think that was the end. But no, the real end, my revenge, came after. Because revenge isn't about a single explosive act. It's a release of everything you've carried inside. For me, it meant letting go of all the illusions, but also punishing her in a subtle way she'd never forget. You see, she needed me to keep her secret. She needed me not to humiliate her publicly. She was terrified that her affair would become gossip among our friends and families, or that I'd confront the other man in some messy confrontation. Instead, I let her sweat. For weeks, I acted unpredictably. I'd come home with a stony silence, ignoring her calls. She slept in the guest room after returning. Yes, I allowed her back in, but only physically. She tried to fix things, cooking, cleaning, begging for a second chance. I stayed polite, cold, made dark jokes about our wonderful marriage. She would flinch every time I joked about stepping out to see a female friend, though I had no such friend. The black humor poured out of me. "Oh, sorry, hon, I forgot to mention it's an old fling. You know how these things are. They just happen." Each line was a twisted blade. She tried to endure it, but I saw the shame in her eyes. Meanwhile, I recorded all of it. Every conversation, every argument. I used that same camera. In the beginning, she hated it. Tried to get me to stop, but I told her that was the only way I'd consider letting her stay. By living under the lens, so to speak, letting me see everything. Maybe that sounds demented. I don't care. It gave me a sense of control when everything else had slipped away. Eventually, I discovered who the man was. His name, job, everything. She admitted it after a final argument. "He's not a bad guy," she said in a trembling voice, as if that would help. That made me laugh. "No," I said, "I'm sure he's a real prince, but I didn't track him down or threaten him." Why? Because I realized something crucial. He wasn't the root of my pain. She was. He was just the symptom. If it hadn't been him, it would have been someone else. So I didn't waste my energy on him. My fight was with her, or maybe with the ghost of who she used to be. You might ask, what's the point? Did you want to keep the marriage alive? No. I wanted to watch her squirm in that limbo, to see her realize how thoroughly she destroyed the bond we had. I wanted her to know that every day she stayed under my roof was an act of charity from me. I realize how twisted that is, but in the wake of betrayal, men sometimes do twisted things. That state of Cold War lasted for weeks. Our interactions were minimal. The house felt like an icebox. She cried a lot, alone in the guest room, or sometimes quietly over the sink when she thought I wasn't around. I'd see the puffy redness in her eyes. She tried to hold my hand once or twice. I pulled away each time, murmuring something sarcastic like, "No thanks, I'm not the best among those you've had, right?" She'd wince and retreat. That was my black humor. It was my armor. Until the day the truth came out. Not the superficial truth of who and when. No, the deeper truth, that she was desperate for me to punish her, to do something decisive, because the waiting was killing her. And that's what I did in the end, something decisive. One evening, I sat her down. Same couch, same camera rolling. She was trembling, probably expecting me to say we were through, that I'd file for divorce, or that I'd do something worse. Instead, I told her calmly, "You said you were unhappy, that I didn't excite you. You said you needed passion." Her eyes were on the floor. She nodded slowly. "I'm giving you your freedom," I said. "I'm letting you go. Pack up, take what you need. I'll be away for the weekend. When I come back, I don't want to see you here." She looked up, tears rolling down her cheeks. "But," she started, voice cracking, "I don't want to be free. I want to fix this." I raised a hand to silence her. "Don't you see?" I said with a bitter smile. "There's no marriage left to save. We can't fix what we broke. We can only bury it." I paused, inhaled. "This is your release, and mine." She tried to protest, but the words died in her throat. The camera recorded all of it. Her tears, my dead calm expression, the final emptiness in my eyes. If you watch that footage, you might think you're witnessing a funeral. And in a way, you are. The funeral of our marriage, of the illusions we clung to for so long. I left the next morning, bag packed, as if I were going on a short business trip, but it was just an excuse to give her time to leave. Drove endlessly for hours, ended up at a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. Sat there flipping through TV channels, not really registering what I was watching. My mind was blank, except for a savage sense of relief. Is that shocking? That a man finds relief in throwing away a decade of marriage? Maybe. But that's the nature of betrayal. Sometimes, vengeance is no dramatic showdown. It's just the final act of letting go, of refusing to carry the heartbreak any longer. When I returned on Sunday evening, the house was quiet. Her car was gone, along with her clothes and most of her things. She'd left a short note on the kitchen table. "I'm sorry. I love you. I know you won't believe me, but I do." I read it once, crumpled it up, threw it in the trash. Then I opened the cabinet, took out the whiskey bottle, and poured myself a glass. Sat at the dining table, the same table where we used to share meals, used to talk about nonsense while holding hands. I took a long sip, stared at the empty seat across from me, listened to the ticking of the clock. For a moment, I thought I'd break down, sob like a child. But the tears didn't come. Maybe my soul was too exhausted to muster that final wave of grief. She was gone, and in her absence, I felt an odd peace. Yes, it was laced with anger and regret, but there was also a strange liberation. No more second-guessing, no more humiliating manipulations, no more forced smiles for the camera. I was free to be angry or sad or indifferent, without the daily charade of marriage. Maybe that's what revenge did for me. It freed me from the heartbreak of not knowing. Now I knew. And there was a grim satisfaction in that. A few days later, I found the camera's memory card on the coffee table. She must have left it. I guess she wanted me to see whatever was on there. Or maybe she was just discarding it, leaving the evidence behind. Out of curiosity, I watched some of the footage. The day we made pasta sauce, the day I confronted her with the voice note, the hours of confessions and tears on that couch. The final piece of footage was a short clip of her, apparently alone in the living room, addressing the camera directly. I almost turned it off, but something made me let it play. She sat there, eyes rimmed red, hair a mess. She spoke in a quiet voice. "If you're watching this, I just want you to know, I never wanted it to end like this. I hated lying to you. I was lonely, not because of you, but because of something broken in me. I wanted to feel special, to feel seen. I'm sorry that I hurt you so deeply. I'm sorry for being a coward." She paused, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "I still love you," she whispered. Then she reached for the camera, and the video ended. I stared at the screen long after it went black. A laugh bubbled out of me, dark, hollow. Too little, too late, I said to no one. Maybe that was the last shard of bitterness leaving my body. Now I'm here, telling you this, or telling her, or telling the ghost of myself who still sits at that table every night. Yes, I feel the pain. Yes, I feel emptiness. But part of me also feels alive, because I didn't let the betrayal define me. I used it, shaped it into my weapon, let it cut through all the illusions. That's what revenge is, in the end, not a gory spectacle, but a personal reckoning. It's the moment you say, I refuse to be a victim. And then you watch the old life burn away, leaving you standing in the ashes, free to choose what comes next. I won't pretend I'm fully healed. I wake up some mornings and the house is too silent, and I wonder if I should have fought for her a little harder, or at least tried therapy. Then I remember the messages, the secret phone calls, the lies. And I remember that moment she turned around at the dinner table, her attention not on me, but on the echo of someone else's voice. I think that's the moment something died between us, more than just my trust. Maybe it was the love itself that died, or the illusions that kept it afloat. Either way, it's over now. And I've made my peace with that. If she finds happiness with him, so be it. If not, that's her burden. Me, I've got my scars. We all do. But I also have clarity, and the knowledge that sometimes you have to walk away from what you believed was forever. That's the real finality. That's the death I spoke of. But with every death comes a rebirth, too. Sometimes, late at night, I think about the taste of whiskey on her lips back when we were happy. I think about the quiet mornings when she'd slip her hand into mine, and we'd watch the sun rise through our bedroom window. And I realize how fragile those moments were, how easily they slipped through my fingers. But that's life, isn't it? You never really know what you've got until you see it shatter. I'm telling you all this because, in a strange way, I want you to see what I saw. I want you to feel the panic, the heartbreak, the twisted laughter. I want you to know that vengeance doesn't need a pistol or a courtroom. Sometimes, it just needs a camera, a quiet voice, and the strength to say, no more. And then you let everything else crash and burn on its own. You let the rubble speak for itself. I guess that's where I'll end this. There's no neat bow to tie it up. I'm not here to teach a lesson or ask for sympathy. I'm just telling the story of a man who lost his marriage, gained his freedom, and walked away with a battered heart that one day might heal, or might not. Either way, it's my story. And if you've listened all the way through, maybe it's a bit of yours too. Because betrayal, love, revenge, those belong to all of us in one form or another, whether we admit it or not. Remember, death doesn't always come in a coffin. Sometimes, it enters through a text message at 8:45 p.m., or the shift of a woman's eyes when she turns her face away from you. And sometimes, the scariest ending of all is the one without any dramatic fireworks. It's the quiet, cold finality of a door closing behind her, and the knowledge that nothing will ever be the same again. That's how it was for me. That's how it remains. Camera off. Story ends. And so it goes.